The next 6 phases begin with one interesting thing, after which practically nothing happens, but just the change of signatures. So let's look at the one thing that is interesting. Well, before we do that, let's compare any changes between, here's where we were before with Series 69, and here's where we are starting with that. Just a couple different signatures. This first pair of signatures, no difference front and back. So, no real interesting changes at all. So, but let's look at the one real significant thing. And that was the introduction of the $2 denomination as a Federal Reserve note. That had never been the case before. So we're in an era. Now, most of these come out in 1974. This would be when Ford became president. He appointed his own treasurer and secretary of the treasurer. So Neff and Simon. So here's our $1. No real changes there. The $2, however, has a different year on it for a very important reason, is that it was introduced as part of a program to commemorate the bicentennial of the United States of America. So part and parcel with that was a quarter. That was 1776 to 1976. And it had the drumming person here. There was a $50, also 1776 to 1976. And this showed Independence Hall and even said 200 years of freedom. And finally, there was the bicentennial Eisenhower dollar, again showing the dates of 1776 to 1976. And on the back, the moon, because we had gone to the moon pretty recently, and the Liberty Bell to celebrate, American liberty. So there we have our bicentennial coins, and to go with those coins was this note. So by making it a $2 bill, first of all, it allowed us to revive a denomination that by this point in time had completely lapsed as a United States note, and in fact had dropped out of production. So even as a United States note, so it had truly lapsed. Second thing was $2 is 200 pennies, so for 200 years of American nation. And then another thing was, it says 1976 on it, but it still has Neff and Simon. And the really neat thing is, it's a whole different reverse. No more picture of Jefferson's house, the Monticello. Now we have a version of Trumbull's painting. There's a painting hanging in the Capitol. A few figures were cropped out of each end so as to keep them from being either too small or too crowded, or there's not enough room. But basically it's the famous painting of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. So there's all these people gathered and signing this declaration, and that is regarded as what officially created this country on July 4, 1776. Interestingly enough, though that commemorative time is long behind us, the $2 bill, when revived, which will be a bit of a while, continues to use the same design. It still has "In God We Trust" in there, $2, United States of America. So it really is not any different as far as all the usual things. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, just like the others have all been. The Treasurer of the United States is on this side. The Secretary of the Treasury is here. The United States of America, and even though there used to be a line there saying "will pay to the bearer," $2, the "will pay to the bearer" was simply replaced with that strange little bit of scroll work that was created especially for this. The whole drawing had expanded slightly, so they had to redraw it and have like fewer beads along the way and things like that. And probably, well, this was never any variety of that. On the previous $2 was completely different. So for this first period of Neff and Simon, all right, the $1, no different. The 2 we've seen, the 5 we've seen, The 10, here we go. There it is, Neff and Simons, now back to 1974 for everything else. Yeah, the 20 we've seen, Neff and Simon. Same in the White House that we've seen since 1934C. $50, 1974, Neff and Simon. Capital, In God We Trust. And the $100, same as we've seen, Neff and Simon. In God We Trust. Let's see, what does it say here? Independence Hall. Cool, it's just like on a $50. So, these coins are not part of the further succession. I just kind of threw them in there. Now, for the rest of this, we don't have any more $2 bills, but the gap is there because the denomination still exists and will eventually be seen again. So, 1977, Morton and Blumenthal. Oh, okay. In God We Trust. Here we are, 1977, $5. 1977, $10. Okay, 1977, $20. No changes. 1977. These are now by the Carter administration. And Morton and Blumenthal, 1977. Here. And I'm just realizing, I think I misunderstood that signature. Let me try that again. Okay, hold on. After Miller. Okay. So what happens next is Blumenthal is replaced by 77A, all the same except something scribble. That's supposed to be Miller. Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, that's Miller. They have 77A. And then also 77A, $5. Okay, again, nothing different in the back. And $10. Again, Miller, Morton and Miller, 77A. Now, apparently Miller wasn't in there very long, and they never needed to bother making any higher denominations during the short span that Miller was the Secretary of the Treasury. Next, they had replaced Miller, both of them. Joseph, I thought I knew that, Buchanan, I think. I'm going to just say that for now. And Regan, 1981. So, but again, no further changes. Bushman, maybe? Oh, I should have to look that up. Well, yeah, why don't I look that up? I'm sorry. I hate having to do this twice. Okay, after Miller and... yeah, it was Buchanan. Wow. His penmanship's pretty horrible, too. Okay, let's see. We got about as far as, what, the 10? Yeah, Buchanan and Regan. Well, we'll just say like we did. And then 20, 81, Buchanan and Regan. Which, by the way, I believe came with the next administration of Ronald Reagan. Okay. Buchanan and Reagan. Okay. And then a little later on, we had to replace Buchanan with Ortega, but Reagan is still there in the 1981. And that seems to have lasted long enough to be worth producing all of the normally active denominations. And I say normally active because while all the big denominations are permanently inactive, the $2 is temporarily active, but not at this time anymore. Not since 1976 until later on. So again, Ortega and Reagan. And finally, Ortega and Reagan. Well, from Ronald Reagan's second term, he replaces Reagan with Baker. So we still have Baker. Now we're up at 1985. Okay, that's why we trust. And we have, okay, Ortega and Baker. No other changes. Ortega and Baker. Okay. Ortega and Baker. Ortega and Baker. And Ortega and Baker. So that gets us through these next 6 phases, which, other than the $2 at the beginning, is on the whole almost as interesting as the 1950 series. The next thing, we will start with something that at first seems kind of simple. 1988 with Ortega and someone else. But we'll get into that in the next part. Thanks for listening.